According to many mind-body experts in the field of mind-body pain, mind-body syndrome, and TMS, relationships are the #1 trigger to the onset of chronic symptoms. That means that our relationships with other people, with the world, and with ourselves can actually determine how angry we feel inside, how satisfied we are in life, and how safe we feel in life in general. In this video, I'm going to be explaining how we can build safer and more fulfilling relationships for ourselves in order to start overcoming chronic mind-body pain. So let's get started. So why are relationships so fundamental to our mental and physical well-being? Why are they so likely to trigger real physical symptoms in certain people? Just to give you an example, I've heard stories of people developing their first symptoms just before or just after they got married. People who have recovered from their symptoms after they resolved an argument with their spouse or after they got divorced. So as you can see, there seems to be a very strong link between our relationships and chronic pain. As you probably know, if you've been following me and other practitioners for a while, as human beings, we need to feel safe in our lives, in our environment, and that includes feeling safe being ourselves with the people around us. What happens when we have a conflict in a relationship is that suddenly the sense of safety goes out the window, and many people typically go one of two ways. Some of them try to justify their standpoint. They create a lot of anger. They might even create a lot of resentment if the conflict isn't resolved. Other people, on the other hand, tend to try and comply with other people's demands. They might tend to people please in order to keep the peace and ensure that that sense of safety is withheld. Only this strategy typically doesn't help either, because for the unconscious brain, for your inner self, it's not safe at all to feel that you are constantly denying your own needs or that you are constantly allowing the other person to invalidate your opinion or criticize you or not to consider your judgment or your needs or wishes. In fact, typically, it is probably healthier to get a little bit angry at the other person, to express your anger and your point of view, rather than to try and appease the other person in order to keep the peace. This strategy of trying to appease someone else in the long term, of trying to put up with someone else, of even trying to find excuses for why someone else is the way he is, leads to a lot of self-doubt as you start to lose confidence in yourself, and it also creates significant resentment and anger in that little part of yourself that knows the truth, that knows that you deserve better, that knows that you deserve to be heard, or that your wishes deserve to be fulfilled. And I'm not saying here that anger is the only effective strategy. In fact, those people who just display anger are also typically projecting their own insecurities and weaknesses outwards, and they are failing to see the whole picture. And as you probably know, typically the other person in a conflict doesn't react very well to anger, so it does nothing really to help the conflict resolve. So how can we build safe relationships in our lives, with our partners, with our friends, with our colleagues? The best way, in my opinion, is always to be honest about what we want, what we need from the relationship, and also to be willing to hear someone else's perspective. So of course it takes a certain amount of respect both towards the other person as well as to yourself. And there's some sort of balance that has to go on between respecting the other person's wishes or opinion, but also respecting your own opinion and your own wishes. For the sake of focusing on chronic pain conditions and mind-body disorders, I find it a little bit more relevant to address those aspects of ourselves that are trying to appease the other person, that are trying to keep the peace in our relationship at the expense of our inner needs. Very often, people who have these habits of people-pleasing, appeasing, peacemakers, they repress a lot of their desires and they lose a lot of self-worth and confidence as they end up not even believing themselves, not even trusting themselves to make decisions. Because overcoming chronic pain requires a strong sense of self-empowerment, it is essential that you regain the self-empowerment by validating your emotions and by respecting yourself and your needs and wishes. This takes a lot of work in the beginning for those people who are used to ignore their needs in order to keep the peace in a relationship. But there is also another set of people who are well aware of the resentment or the anger going on, who express it and vent it out with their friends or the rest of their family, but who are not able to resolve the conflict with this particular person. It's worth remembering that just venting with other people about what's wrong in your relationship typically does not work. It typically blinds you to the other person's perspective. It takes you further away from resolving the conflict, and probably from your own attitude and energy, the other person will feel that you are so much in opposition to him that you will create a greater divide. So if you really, really care about the relationship, honesty is the best policy. Getting clear on your needs, on both of your needs and priorities, is the best policy, and working your way from there. If it's totally incompatible, then you might need a change, and then you might need to take a different direction from this person. However, a lot of times you might feel that if both parties are clear about their needs and priorities, typically it's easier to solve the issue. The other aspect that I wanted to talk briefly about are toxic relationships. For example, a toxic work environment, for example, having someone who micromanages you all the time, or who degrades your work, or who doesn't value your opinion at work, or for that matter, it could happen also in a circle of friends, someone who ridicules your opinion, who doesn't value what you have to say, doesn't take you seriously, who whatever you say turns it against yourself, telling you that you should be better or you should know better and stuff like that. When you feel that you are being attacked in this way, when your self-worth starts to feel that is eroding, then probably this is a toxic relationship for you. And one of the most powerful things, I'm telling you, if not the most powerful thing that you can do for your chronic pain, is to get back that self-respect for yourself. Having self-respect for yourself, creating boundaries, deciding firmly not to take a certain behavior or situation anymore, sends a wonderful, powerful safety signal to your brain. And it's a sense of safety that the brain needs in order to release that pent-up muscle tension, all those negative changes that have taken place in the body as a result of living under this constant tension and dissatisfaction. Which brings me to another relationship aspect that I wanted to mention, and that's your relationship with yourself. Many people with chronic pain, including those people who I sometimes coach and get to know, do not have a healthy relationship with themselves. They tend to beat themselves up for making mistakes. They tend to beat themselves up for not being where they think they should be. They keep criticizing themselves at work and the family. When it comes to their own healing, they feel they're not doing enough. They beat themselves up, basically. And that's a very unhealthy relationship with yourself. And you could have all the supportive people in the world around you trying to back you up, and it matters. But if you are not being supportive towards yourself, if you do not approve of yourself, it's going to be very hard to boost that self-esteem and to create that personal empowerment needed to overcome chronic symptoms. And you might ask, but what does personal empowerment, what does believing in myself that I can do a good job have to do with healing from a bad back or chronic leg pain or sciatica or whatever? And I'm here to tell you that it has a lot to do with it, because when you feel empowered in one area of your life, especially when that area is so important as the relationship you have to yourself, or to other people for that matter, then you create the sense of safety that you create kind of spreads and permeates to other areas of your life. You will be in a more confident position to trust and believe in your own healing and recovery as well, because you'll be able to trust yourself as well. You'll be able to trust your body more. You will have less tension accumulated due to these inner conflicts. And as we know, this release of tension is what usually brings about improvement in symptoms, because most symptoms that we feel in the body, especially chronic pain in the muscles, are due to a lot of muscle tension. So never underestimate your relationships with the people around you, especially those closest to you, those who matter the most to you. Of course, those people who tend to matter least, we tend to give them maybe less importance, so we don't take whatever happens to heart as much. Your relationship with yourself. And one other thing I'm going to mention here is your relationship to the world in general. Nowadays, we're exposed to so much negative news about what's going on in the world. We're exposed to so many warnings about what could go wrong in our lives, what's going wrong in our country, and so on, that we don't feel safe living in this world anymore. If we don't feel safe living in this world, then we're going to be having a very hard time to heal from any condition. And this is why reconnecting with the world is so important for healing. Why it's a good idea, if possible, to go out in nature, because nature is easier to connect to and to feel positive about than another environment, like a work environment or a city. But it doesn't matter if it's a city either. It matters what perspective we bring into the experience. It matters that we're willing to observe the world and reconnect with it. That we're willing to let go of the constant negative criticism that we bring about with us when we're out in the world. I mean, some people with chronic pain have totally distanced themselves and cut themselves off from the world. They just live in their own homes, in their little village, and I know that chronic pain may prevent you from being very active or from traveling. But in reality, the fact that you hate the world, the fact that you have disconnected from the world, is having a part in keeping your pain alive, because if you know anything about this, pain also has a purpose. If your subconscious has assumed the idea that it is dangerous out there, then it might create pain for you to keep you from going out there, because it feels that it's dangerous for you, it's not safe for you. So once we start reconnecting with the world and giving ourselves positive experiences, then we have a better chance of eliminating our chronic symptoms, because we remove that purpose of the symptoms to keep us detached from the world. So that might be applicable also in certain situations. So I'd encourage you to take the time to self-reflect a little bit. Is there anything that doesn't sit well with you in your relationship to some other person in your life? Do you constantly feel that you are not being heard? Do you constantly feel frustrated, resentful? Do you tend to beat yourself up and criticize yourself a lot? Are you your own inner bully? And how do you feel about the world in general? Are you able to connect with the world around you? Are you willing to re-engage with life? That's all from me for today, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.